and welcome to a seminar on self. We are dealing today with the secret of self-transformation, which is seminar number 8. I'm your philosopher at large, Tristan McGough, and today we're going to be speaking about the eternal moment, because actually unpacking the eternal moment, the present, as we experience it, is the secret to continuing self-transformation or conscious immortality. Now, it may at first sound rather paradoxical that there is such a thing as conscious immortality, but actually consciousness in the moment is all we are, it's all we have, it's all we'll ever be, it's all we've ever been. So to understand the nature of consciousness in the moment is actually to pierce the present. Now, what is the present? The present, if we were to unpack it, is actually another name for the moment, right? But it's really a gift of the cosmos to you. If we take a look at this cogno card of mine, this cognitive map that helps us outline conceptually, and only that, because the map isn't the territory, is it? I mean, here I have the blue represented again as the mind. Well, that's not really the mind. The mind isn't blue. The mind is that which is able to apprehend blue. And here, if we look at the present as a gift from the universe to you, we're going to see whatever is present seen in you within this circumference of this circle of consciousness of your own awareness in its various pluridimensional depths. The first thing that we can unpack is the presented, an object. I've just presented here a cogno card to you, an eidetic, a symbolic map, if you will, of my conceptualizations of the theory of cognism, that is, where consciousness is the fundamental element in this omniverse that we inhabit of many dimensions. And so this, let's just take this as the example. Here is the presented object that I've given you. But before I could even give you this object, it had to be created as a rendering of my own consciousness operating through mind. But that was a mere potential of being to become present. That potential, that presentivity, is the aesthetic component, the part you feel. You feel the presentivity, you feel that this very moment itself is transpiring from being into becoming. Paradoxically, its being remains the same, but as it becomes, as it turns potential into actuality, what is occurring is your sense of ongoing reality, where the past is subtended into this moment by way of retention, consciousness retention, along the seamless continuity of consciousness which you call your self-identity. But at the same very moment, your consciousness is reaching into the future as a protension. So the intentionality of the moment where you as subject are apprehending an object that I am presenting, that is, this is the process of becoming present. Because each of these elements will only become present to your mind as an object as I explain them. Otherwise, all it is a mess of colors and text and what appears to be some kind of order. But what I'm actually doing is I'm presenting you a presented object of the present. And I'm unpacking this present moment for you by saying, well, first of all, before it can even become a present moment, it has to have that potential, right? That exists in the very sensible texture of the universe. It isn't as if any of this in the universe is out of touch with itself. If anything, the body is fully, organically integrated into its natural world by the same laws that operate within that world. My body doesn't operate by a separate set of natural laws, but participates in the same natural laws as the macrocosm. So that's why I have the ability to actually undertake a process of presenting this to you, because we are a coherent organic whole, and naturally in this world, we are appearing together. But as we look at the present as this gift, if we looked at the gift, whatever it is, and right now, the gift that is presented is this diagram, as well as my explanation, that may lead to a certain understanding within yourself or an experience. And where's that experience going to happen? It's going to happen in the present moment. So here you have the element of time in the temporal sense. Here you have the presented object taking place within the spatial sense. Here you have the potential acting as the very basis by which you can have this entity being presented to you, and the very process of presenting. The presenting is happening right here in the moment. It's happening right here as you look at this very thing. You might recall, and I don't want you to take too much attention on this particular one, except for the colors. And here you're going to see that the two are aligned in terms of space to the presented object, time and the present moment. Cause as being a causal process by which processing takes place, which we've called presenting, and the entity, the sense of entity. And here is the sense of self. Now, elsewhere, I've referred to these four as your internal sense of time, your internal sense of space, your internal sense of entity. That is where you reify objects into particular things. Right now, this is all just a smear of different kind of colors, geometrical forms, and semantic text. However, as I explain it to you, all of a sudden, what pops into being is a recognition that here's this octahedron, which I've utilized in form of the omniversal model, where that entire octahedron, and for that matter, every single imaginable, conceivable, or possible shape, idea, form, or anything else, is contained in the dimensionless point of being, which is sizeless, that it has no space, it is spaceless. That's why it's infinite. Now that's what infinite means. Infinite doesn't mean an infinitude. It does not mean, as in the natural number system, pardon me, if you were to take from 0 to infinity, for instance, with each ordinal number being sequenced, 2 after 1, 3 after 2, 4 after 3, etc., and you go off on an infinitude, you never reach the end of it. That's not the same thing as infinity. Infinity has no dimensions. It is spaceless. It is sizeless. It has no substance. I've referred to it in the past, and I pulled something out one time for you, which was the ground of consciousness. And I said, listen, here's the point, right? The ground of consciousness is that circle. No. If we're talking about the ground of consciousness truly in terms of primal being, the presencing, which we were talking about earlier, then this ground of being upon which all or anything can appear is actually this. There is no distinction. There is no I or thou, I or other, I or it. There is no difference. There's just total unity, which is the absence of differentiation. And that absence of differentiation as pure being is what allows me to present this to you in some coherent, organic fashion in an ordered universe, which of course is the nature of consciousness. That is, consciousness turned outward into manifestation. That's the presentation. When I present this piece of paper and the ideas that it represents, it is presented with a room as a context. This text has a context. Con means with. There are other texts that are here. If you look, there's a space behind me. There's a table. There is a support. And you can see all these different items, which are a myriad or a collection of sensible, perceptible items in our interorganic, our intersomatic, our interbodily exchange. But at the same time that all this organic exchange is taking place as this presentation within this myriad manifestation, which some call Maya, which just means to measure, all of this is being measured out. When you've got the ground of consciousness, which is unmeasured, anything that you put on it, every possible shape can take shape here. I happen to use an octahedron in a lot of my shapes because it makes very coherent the 5 faculties of the self and plus their exteriorization in this world and their interiorization of the ground, the one presence, which is the unity of being. This unity of being lies at the basis of all and is often, when experienced by human beings, called non-dual awareness. Non-dual awareness is where you don't see the universe as different than your ego or any part of yourself. Whether it's your body, your feelings, your mentality, whether it's your bliss, whether it's your sense of identity, unity, continuity, all of it is a shared experience where you are not the thing that exists independently, right? You're not autonomous from everything around here. I'm not autonomous from anything organically in my bodily realm. My body is very dependent on that. But then so are my emotions and my thoughts, and even my sense of ego is all a construction through the exchanges I've had with my various plural dimensional environments. Because I am not simply a body. Right? We went into this, the 10 dimensions of self. What do you identify with? Cut yourself, cut your body. Oh, I hurt. That's your body. You're identifying with your body. But then the second self-dimension we spoke of is the perspectival self, the observing self. And that is where the magic happens, the mystery occurs, and is buried in terms of the transformation into a sense of happiness, because you have a perspective from which you come. And it has nothing whatsoever to do with the body. It's sizeless. It's partless, in the sense that it is one with the very energy of the universe, which is allowing you to experience the sense of presence. When you have your own sense of identity that unfolds and you say, I'm aware of being aware of talking, sitting, presenting, and then whatever it is that you are aware of in your conscious set, that's just part of the liminal. aspect of consciousness. It's like you're surfing on the wave of consciousness. There's a whole ocean below. There's a whole sky above. The sky above is your supraliminal consciousness. And we touched on that last time when we spoke of theos, logos, pathos. Remember that? And ethos and bios. We were talking about these as being the fundamental energies of the Anasic self, the spiritual self, the unitive self. Well, this self is not something other than what you are. You are this self. And this is one of the pluridimensional levels of presence that you're often unaware of. In the same regard, there is in the deep ocean below upon which you're surfing the subliminal consciousness, which is a complete menagerie of your own hidden potentials and the ones that have been unfolded and have constellated in some sort of crystallization of emotional sentiments and layered beliefs and pointed commitments in life and developed habits. All of these things we spoke of, that they're all constrictions on the essential power of you as a transformative unit of consciousness. You're a unit of consciousness that must overcome itself. It's, as Friedrich Nietzsche said, man is something that must be mastered. And he spoke of the Übermensch. And by that, he meant the Overman. What comes beyond human? What is superhuman? Well, it's all waiting for you. That's the potential of theos. Theos is the very presence of the universe in you so that you have a sense of unity and identity and a progressive consciousness which is always continuous with itself. And that's self-evident. It's apodictic. It's axiomatic. And remember, when I was talking to you of the senses, the Buddhic senses, the spiritual senses that we have, you're axiomatic. That is the sense of self-evidence, where your consciousness evidences itself to you in the moment. You don't need a certificate or a warrant for experience other than your own experiencing. Anything else is a proposition. You can say, I experienced this emotion, but then that's a past object. That's something you retend from the past in your consciousness in the moment. Because the moment is the only thing that exists. Ask any physicist. Any physicist is going to tell you that the past is long gone. The only thing that's going on right now are your active brain cells. The subatomic particles scattering all about in quarkic space. All these things are happening right now, nowhere else. So when we impact the present, we're talking about the gift of the self, the one self, to you, the finite self. And for that matter, to each of us as finite beings. And so when we look at the present, it is the present moment. It is whatever is presented. It is whatever is being presented during that moment. It is that process unfolding. It is that consciousness that's experienced itself transparently, automatically, self-evidentially. I don't need a proposition from any book. I don't need a calculation from any machine. I don't need an affirmation from any human to know that I'm experiencing myself as consciousness in this moment. That is presencing. The great Hindu yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda, the avatar of love who came over to America in 1920, and who died with his boots on in 1952 at a podium after having said the night before that he hadn't long yet to go in this world. He gave the secret to happiness. Now, we've already talked about self-transformation. What is self-transformation? It's where you are going to go through the process of self-realization, right, through your 10-dimensional self. You're going to become aware of it. You're going to begin to activate new portions of it. And then you're going to cultivate those 10 dimensions to result in the fruits of self-transformation, which we spoke of course, an empowering mind. Okay? I could grab that for you, but anyway, here, in terms of the self, we're talking about an empowering mind as the fruit of self-transformation, where you go through the realization of your 10 dimensions. That is, you make them real. You take them from potential and actualize them. And as you do that, you cultivate them in this world. Those 10 dimensions in this world in which you are totally, completely, and absolutely anchored. And so you eventually come up using your mind in the thinking to become enlightened thinking. Your feeling becomes endearing feelings. Your willing becomes empowering will. And your life becomes a set of emancipations, not just for you, but for others. So Yogananda gave the secret of happiness, which is, of course, then the secret of self-transformation. Right? What's the goal of self-transformation? It's eudaimonia, happiness. And happiness consists of an enlightening mind, endearing love or heart, an emancipating life, and an empowering will. These are all integrated. They all become the spokes on the wheel of your consciousness as you roll through cause and effect in order to make the transitions necessary in your life that lead to happiness. So, Yogananda gave the secret of happiness, but before I tell you what his secret is, I want us to recall Bhutiraja's saying. Remember Bhutiraja? He is the Kashmiri sage who said, the method of achieving the goal is to be constantly awake to one's own awareness. By this means alone, the sage achieves the state of non-differentiation. There is no other means other than staying with awareness of one's own being. Closely maintaining this alone, the sage will become joyful, resting in the self. So where is all the transformation going to take place? Where are you going to cultivate? Where are you going to realize? You are going to realize and cultivate in the moment, which is the gift from the universe to you. You can call the cosmos the universe, or you can call it the ground of being, or you can call it God, as it's theologically been done. Any of these will do as long as it gets you to turn inward to understand that whatever you are is part of that ground. Within that ground you live and move and have your being, to paraphrase Paul. So therefore, grounded in consciousness being aware that you are aware, being conscious that I am conscious, that's where you realize what Yogananda's formula for happiness is. He says the secret of happiness is the consciousness of the presence of God. Now, when we're talking about God, we're talking about all and everything. And we're talking about God in two senses. It is not just God as nature. That's Godhood. Everything we see around us, everything we think as finite beings, everything we experience is a finite emotion, moving into our trans-finite consciousness, forever with us, being subtended as protension and retention in this moment of intention. The structure of the moment doesn't go away now, does it? And it doesn't replicate itself, because the present scene that's happening right now is absolutely novel. It's never happened before. Not only is it novel, it's spontaneous. That is, it was unobstructed. It happened all on its own. Reminds me of the Zen koan. Sitting quietly, doing nothing, spring comes and the grass grows by itself. But when you pay attention to the moment, what's actually taking place as the present scene, no matter what is presented, no matter all the possibilities and potentials that are there, and no matter where you go, you're always going to be in the present moment. You're not floating off to a future. You can refer to the future, but that's part of the limitation of eternity. Eternity, like infinity, has no dimensions. It doesn't have a before or after. It's always here, just like infinity is always here. The here and now. These are the points that scintillate and that are measured and that are the meaning of Maya, because Maya is mother, measure, meter, matter. They all come from the same root, and that is its manifestation. It's placing limits on things. It's dividing reality up into part-tight sections, scenes, segments, spans, series. They're all being part of the presenting, the process that is never-ending and everlasting, and is always already here and ongoing forever and ever and ever. So two of the things that we've already noted in terms of when you unpack this moment, this gift from the omniverse to each of us as conscious beings, we tap into the one presence every time that we are presencing. And whatever our presentation is, our presencing is the interior of whatever it is that the exterior of us has manifested to the world at the point down in the octagon, the Omgen, the omniversal gem that allows us to understand the orderliness of this universe. So in terms of the present scene, if we go back to that for a moment, Yogananda, saying that the secret of happiness is consciousness of the presence of God. Well, the presence of God, I've referred to already in terms of the Godhood as nature, this finite, interdependent world, this myriad of manifestation we call Maya. But the infinite, eternal side, where you take off all the limits and there is an impartite being, it's pure being, it's undifferentiated. Remember, the state the sage achieves the state of non-differentiation. Absolute unity. Everything has a sameness, right? The one thing that all of us share in common is being. We share that with whether it's the chair that I'm sitting on, the planet that's whirling through space and revolving around the sun while it rotates on its axis, spinning in a Milky Way, which is just one amongst how many galaxies, some even beyond our remotest speculation, our ability to observe. And that's just the physical world. We're not talking about the interdimensional spaces, which we've managed to penetrate so far to the subatomic level, believing that that's all that there is. Well, that's all that our instruments at this point detect. That's all part of nature. That's godhood, if you will. Meitzard Eckhart says, well, that part of the nature of God is pure being. And we just said that, didn't we? The one thing we have in common is that we all are. To be, as Whitehead once said, is to be the potential to become something. And the moment, with its presentivity, has all those potentials packed in to become present and part of our presencing. So what is part of our presencing going on? I already said, look at it. It's always novel, right? You haven't had the same thought. You think you may sometimes think the same thing, but you never do. Every moment is a recreation. So it's novel and it's spontaneous. Now, what does that talk about? That means that there's energy, and you feel that energy. You can feel that energy in the feeling self, can't you? Remember, after the perspectival self, we've got the bodily self. Now, that's not just your five senses, taste, touch, smell, etc. It's not those passive senses alone. It's your active senses. It's your ability to manipulate with the hands, to move with your feet, right? To talk with your mouth, to procreate with your genital organs, and to eliminate with your gastric apparatus. Your perspectival self, on the other hand, is where the point of your consciousness as the tire meets the road of reality. And there's a great depth to that perspective. Remember when we talked about that perspective being frozen and constrained by beliefs and sentiments and habits and commitments that all are unchecked and unexamined. They're the baggage that you carry and you don't know why. You have to submit these to a clarifying process through self-realization, where you become aware then of your next element of self, which is, of course, the thinking self, the narrating self, just as you have a feeling self, a self that is able to experience pain and pleasure and peace and the emotions of anger, etc., love, whether it's romantic or filial, whatever it is. You have that ability. So you have a bodily self, which has both active and passive senses. You have a perspectival self, upon which not only do you view the world, but you penetrate the world through that point, your perspective. And then you have a feeling self, and you have a thinking or narrating self. But that thinking and narrating self takes on an entirely new dimension in the social self, where you are taught language and logic, how to think, how to problem solve, how to get along with your enemies, how to get along with your friends. That is where you as a cultural and social entity exists. And it is a very broad part of the spectrum of consciousness. Everything that we've accumulated as a culture and transmit to one another, whether it's the secret oral teachings of the East or whether it's the scientific theories of subparticle physics today, all of it lives within a milieu of speciality, a speciality of consciousness called concepts, from which we build theories and worldviews. And we learn to behold the world and to stratify it in our attitudes, and our perspectives. And then we find that even with all of this bodily self, perspectival self, feeling self, thinking self, social self, which is really your imagination, that's where you utilize your imagination, not simply to assume somebody else's persona, but try to take the point of how they see you. You got those five, but they're all of what? Of one single consciousness. It's your social selves. It's your thinking self. It's your feeling self. It's your perspectival self. It's your bodily self, all five of them, as a continuity of consciousness. This is your continuing self. And then we spoke, well, if you have a continuing self, right now, all my emotions, all of my thoughts, all of my wills, all of my past, all of my memories, all of my imaginings of the future are occurring right now in the moment, but the amazing thing is they are organized. That's your unifying self. Next, you have a self that is involved in the ongoing matrix of the world, in which supraliminal aspects, for instance, of logos and pathos, of your feelings, the greatest loves and blisses that you have, all those peak experiences, they are all coming into this world and creating a change in this world. We're all moving toward a new Eden, to a new earth, to a new plane, to a new consciousness. That's your advancing self. But every single one of these selves has an axis, a line running through them, the identifying self. Now these are the selves that are realized, and then as you cultivate these selves in this world in which you are bringing down supraliminal forces of your consciousness and energies, when you feel the novelty and the spontaneity that is occurring and the energy, that energy are these potentials of your anosic self, your spiritual self, your spirit. They are the ground of you. They are the thing that allows you to participate in this world and to have a sense of presence. A sense of presence that's advancing, that's always unified, that is continuous, that yet has all these myriad dimensions in your own personal omnigem of consciousness, whether it's social self, or your feeling self, thinking self, whatever self. Whatever self, you're always with yourself. And the present is the gift of the self with a capital S to you, the self with a small s. There is nothing out there that isn't in here. There's nothing in here that isn't out there. So when you are becoming aware of the presence of God or the ground, you are becoming aware of an infinity. And Meister Eckhart speaks of God in this sense as the Godhead, not the Godhood that unites everything in pure being, but it's the Godhead. It's the peak. It's the one presence. It's the unity of being. And that, he says, just as in nature God is pure being, in the ground of consciousness, God is pure nothingness. You can't put a dimension or a distinction. You can't put a distinction or a dimension here that is not already possible. But the fact that you can put any particular presentation into this world is a miracle in itself that we call creativity. Paradoxically, before this moment existed, there was no novel moment. There were other moments, but it wasn't this fresh moment that spontaneously arose without any obstruction. It wasn't as if some alien force from the universe came in and collided with the cause and effect, and all of a sudden, Tristan McGough winks out of existence. These things aren't happening here. Now, why is that? Because the entire universe is a self-contained, coherent system. In fact, it's the only unity there is. It's the only unit there is. Because it contains everything. There can't be anything else past itself. So in terms of presencing, we have already, there's energy that you feel well up, there's novelty, there's spontaneity, there's creativity. What else is there? Well, there's purity. You see, there was nothing to hinder reality from expressing itself from absolute nothingness. The Godhead effortlessly is the Godhood. What is transcendent is here, already immanent. As consciousness, I'm experiencing my presence as a self-sealing unity and identity. That's clear. So, I'll tell you what we're going to do for our step this week, and we're going to use step 5, the meditation moment. And this is a self-transforming, evolving practice, step number 5. And this time, it's going to have a multiple set of meditations that we're going to do to achieve Paramahansa's realization of happiness. So, first of all, sit comfortably. and prepare to meditate. Now, I'm going to have another session after this 12-fold seminar on self, and one of the sessions I will discuss meditation more fully. But for the moment, just sit comfortably, whether it's sitting in a chair, you want your back straight, you want your chin parallel to the floor. It's best if you close your eyes after focusing on your nose, and then take your eyes to the center of your forehead, as a triangle, as it were. And with eyes closed, you sit comfortably and you prepare to meditate. So now, you'll enter the door of awakening to self-consciousness through the invocation of the awakening mantra, which by now, I'm sure you are all aware. I am conscious of being conscious. That's your entry. It's not the words that do it. It's your experiencing of your consciousness. That's what we're talking about. Chanting the words ain't going to bring the Lord. You need to experience what is occurring now. Right? Bhutiraja. There's no substitute other than staying with awareness of one's own being. That's where we're at. The awakening mantra opens that door into one's own being. That's simple. So the first set of meditations is going to be on the present moment. And the first one, you may want to take a snapshot of this or whatever, and I can always send it to you. Just tag me at my email address at the end of this session. Well, the first set of meditations is going to be on the present moment. And your first meditation, you will ask yourself, as I have, am I living in the moment, or is the moment living in me? Now you meditate on that for a while. And after you think you've got some sort of answer to that, ask yourself this next question, constituting your second meditation. Am I living the moment, or is the moment living me? And after you've spent some time reckoning this, move to the third meditation. Is there any more of me in this moment than any other moment? Is there any more of me in this moment than any other? Well, once you've sat there and you entered into the silence, and remember, Rumi said silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation. So once you answer these koans and enter your silence, enter the second set of meditations. And this is the practice of the presence. Christians will call it the practice of the presence of God, as will those who practice Raja Yoga, as taught by Patanjali. And he specifically speaks about being aware of the presence of Ishvara, that is, the one special soul that encompasses the entire cosmos. In the practice of the presence here, this is what you're going to ask yourself and what you'll deal with. The ground of being, or as some say, God. The ground of being is consciously presencing itself in this moment as. And now these are the 7 different presencing features that I would like you to pay attention to in your meditation. You're going to feel the presencing as energy. That is that dynamicality where there is something happening. Remember, energy meaning work being done, and that's exactly what's occurring. There is an energy that is present in presencing. There's a spontaneity. It wasn't planned. None of this is ever planned. You can plan, as I did, a particular exercise, but that's all happened in the moment where it is unplanned up to that point. My planning has to come from somewhere. It comes from presentativity, this potential to present. So, it's fresh, it's novel. It's creative. It's pure. That is, it's unobstructed. So you have energy, spontaneity, novelty, purity, unity. That is, there is no difference. And identity, yet there is the sameness. At last, when you are presencing the ground, you will be at peace. There is a silence. So at this point, you ponder Paramahansa Yogananda's saying, the secret of happiness is the consciousness of the presence of God. Well, that is going to wrap it up for this session number 8. And next time, what we are going to be dealing with is the source of self-transformation, which is the question, why is there something, anything, rather than nothing? It has to do with the mystery of reality. And reality has a fourfold quadrant of pure being, finite being, no being, that is nothing, and conscious being. So, until then, my friends, behave whenever you must, be good whenever you can, but above all else, be yourself.